Hello everyone, this is Budgies Are Cool again, and welcome to yet another video in my Paint Tool SAI for Beginners series. Now in this one, I've already pre-drawn a little guy to demonstrate what I'm going to be going over, which is editing. So when I say editing, I mean affecting the picture without actually drawing anything. So we won't be using any tools except for maybe the wand, the magic wand tool. But yeah, I guess let's just get started. So I guess first I'll kind of go over the process that I did to make this guy. So as you see here, I have 4 layers and 3 of them are actually visible. Well, I guess this one's not really a layer, it's a folder. And folders are pretty much exactly what they sound like, is they just hold layers in them, or even another folder, which has more layers in it. But I'll get to that in a minute. So I started off with a sketch. That's him. And you can change the opacity to make him faded while you're doing the outline, which is right there. And then I did the color, it's right there. Let's make that go away, and then here's the background. Just a really simple one, so you wouldn't get confused. Actually, so I wouldn't get confused, but we'll go over that in a second. So right now, this guy, he's holding 2 things, right? One is just a grayscale paper, and the other one is a color wheel with colors that are corresponding to the actual color wheel on here. And what we can do is open up the color folder, select this layer which has the samples on it, and now what we can do is press Control and U, and that'll bring up hue/saturation. You can also get to it by going to filter and then selecting that. It tells you the shortcut right there. So with hue, when you change the bar, it will affect whatever is on the layer that has color in it. So when I do this in a second, you'll see that the paper doesn't do anything, but the color wheel will. So yep, pretty much just goes throughout all of the colors. And that's just kind of a big demonstration. I'll show you with the pants right here. If I go to that and I press Ctrl U and then adjust the hue, then we'll go through the color spectrum. That's a little easier to understand maybe. But this just kind of looks cool when it's wheeling. Rotate, rotate, rotate. And now, saturation. Now that will affect whatever color is already on the layer, kind of like the hue, except this one will either make it unsaturated, so grayscale, or completely saturated, so only color. So let's put that back to 0, and luminescence will affect everything. That will pretty much say dark, so completely black, or completely white. This is also useful for pretty much anything. And now that was Control U, right? So now the next one is Control Shift U. That brings up the brightness/contrast menu. And here we have brightness again, or not again, but it's pretty similar to luminescence, except sometimes it doesn't exactly do the same thing. Not quite sure what exactly because I've never went into it myself, but I know it does something different sometimes. Now contrast is pretty interesting and useful, as you can either put it down, so it's kind of similar to saturation right now, but you'll notice that when we go all the way up, then things start getting sharper. So over here, the white and the black have become more prominent, not as much gray. And if you look in the color wheel, these blurred edges will kind of come together. And depth, kind of similar to saturation also, except you maintain a certain amount of your not hue, but shading. Not really shading either. You just have to play with it to get a feel for it. And so that was brightness and contrast. Now next on the list are blend modes. So you see here we have pretty much everything is on normal right now, but we can switch that to be something like or just a second. When we have it on normal, opacity just does this, right? It makes it either really opaque or invisible, or somewhere in between. Now if we go to something like binary, which is one of the most prominent changes, biggest changes that you can see with these, with here and complete opacity, we're black. But as we bring opacity down, we can see that things are pretty much cell shaded, so there's no blending at all. Everything is a definite border. And now let's go to the sweater. The sweater, I made it a folder because I wanted to have these extra little design things on it. So without it, it's just that. But with these, we have, you know, something to add depth and a little bit of interest. Now these, the need sleep sign on his shirt, I made it this blend mode. I don't actually know what that is. It's a translation error, I'm pretty sure, but with normal we're right there. So we're at 13% opacity with this layer, so I'll just remember that to change it back. So with normal and completely opaque, we have exactly what it is. Then multiply, this one, it's a little darker, it'll show through a little better. So over here we can kind of see through it, and yeah. Screen is there. It usually use it when you want to lighten something, and multiplies when you want to darken something a little. Overlay is pretty interesting. It'll change the saturation a little depending on whether this original layer is light or dark. And then addition, well, again, these are just some things that you'll want to test out and see for yourself. And then yeah, and we already know binary, and let's go back to this one at 13% and add that straight back. Okay, so that was blend modes. Now for selecting and warping. Now you can either use the magic wand tool, lasso tool, or rectangular selection tool. But when you already have your layers all drawn out, what you can do instead is press Control or hold Control and then tap the box on your layer. So you saw that. I just held Control and then clicked on the box. And now whatever was drawn on that layer will be selected. An easy way to know exactly what's selected is pressing W for the magic wand tool. I'm not sure if I made that a shortcut or not, but anyway, just go to the magic wand tool. And depending on that, you'll have your selection. And Control D is to deselect, usually. So, yep. And for folders, just click on the actual folder icon. And you can go through all the layers. And one more thing, when you want to select multiple layers at the same time, you can't just click one after the other. You'll have to hold... Wait, what did I just do? Control D. Yep, hold Shift with Control, and then you'll be able to add more to your selection. And actually, I'm pretty sure, yeah, if you look here, right under the mouse when you hover over it, it'll say Control plus click equals select, Control Shift click is add, which I just said, and then Control Alt click is to subtract. So yep, if I say select everything with Control A, Control Alt, that does that, Control Alt, and then you can get that. So I just click on the hair, and now his hair is not selected. You can also select things even when they're not active. So I guess I probably should have done this from the start, but I didn't think of it. Okay, and now when you want to do something like the method that I used to color for this, I used the overcoloring method, which let's just recolor the hair. Or actually no, the hair is really difficult. Let's recolor the pants. Yeah. Let's just make all of that invisible. Add a new layer. And then if you want gray pants, you can have gray pants. Let's actually turn smoothing back off. So the reason that I like overcoloring is because if you just select the inside of your outline and then fill it, it might have little spaces of unselected parts when you get to like corners. The selecting tool doesn't really work well with corners. So after you do the overcoloring, go to your outline layer, press W for magic wand tool, and then select everything outside. And then make sure to go back. Actually no, that's not good. You can see that there are there's kind of a border where it didn't quite make it to the line. So let's turn it from color difference to precise, which is what I usually use for selecting parts of the outline. So there, and there. And now you can see that's much nicer. And then you go to your layer that you overcolored. And then, I'm not sure if, once again, I don't know if I'm the one who set this, but Control D for me is, oh, that's wrong. D, just D, is to delete your selection. So there's pants. Now we'll delete his pants and add back all the colors. Oh, another useful thing is pressing Control, Shift, and I. What that does is when you have something selected, such as his sweater, you press Control, Shift, I, and it inverts your selection. So from there to there. You can invert as many times as you want. It's very useful also. Now, what is next? Oh yes, of course, the reason that you select is so you can edit it. So I already went over deleting the selection. And now here's what can I edit? Let's go to the outline, take out the color. So one of your favorite tools, or at least mine is, and it's not really a tool either, it's just I'm not sure if it's actually in here. Yes, transform, Control and T. So this one, depending, or if you press it without selecting anything, it'll automatically select everything on that layer. So Control T selects the whole entire outline when you're on the outline layer. Now if you use the lasso tool to select part of it, so everything that's inside of here, and you press Control T, it'll only affect that part. And just click and drag to move it around. And escape is to undo that, or to just not save the change. Now, when we have this in selection, you can see that there are editing points. So without pressing anything, just click the corner and you can adjust the height and width accordingly. Same thing with the actual height and the actual width, independently of course. And then escape is to undo that again. Now Control T again, and this time if you hold Shift while you're dragging a corner, you'll keep your proportions. This is good for resizing. And now when you hold control and you try to move one of these points, any of these, then it'll move only that point pretty much. So here we can skew it and shrink it, but it's a lot more free than before. But of course you'll also lose your proportions, and just depending on the job that you want to do, it could be good or bad. And now the corners are also pretty cool because you can adjust it everywhere except for in the line between the corners, because that way it is an impossibility for the program. Also, you can change the perspective, so if you want something to look like a fisheye view, or kind of worm's eye view, something like that, you can change the perspective based on what you want it to look like. So, yep, that's it for warping. Now I'll go over one last thing, which is the lazy person's background, I guess. A lot of people like to ask about this one. So, what you do, or what I do, just remember that what I do is probably not the best way to do things, like just because there's so many ways to do it. It's just the way that I figured it out or learned it. So, you'll want to keep probably a backup of your outline and color, and to do that is, let's see, can you right click it? No? I press Q, and you can do that again. Just drag your layers next to each other, and actually before I go any further, let's check what Q actually does. So I set Q to duplicate layer. You can find this in here, I think. Yep, right there. Okay, and I think you can also do it here. Yep, right there is set to Q. So what you can do here is, for folders, when you want to flatten the entire thing, you can press Ctrl E, or you can go to layers and select merge folder, and then that makes it so that we have all the color on one layer, which is good. Now what we want to do is combine the outline and the color layer, and how to do that is either press Ctrl E, or you can select merge down, which is Ctrl E. So that gives you the entire character on one layer. Now what I'm going to do is move the original ones above it, so we have our outline and color layers respectively. And now we'll select our color layer and press Ctrl T. This way we'll be able to edit the layer that's behind it. Now for the big double layer, or big double image background thing, I like to zoom out, Ctrl T, and then hold Shift while I resize that image. So the placement of this double image is really a matter of preference, or whatever looks good to you. This is just kind of a random placement, but press enter to select whatever, not select anything, but just to keep it as it is. Keep your adjustment. Okay, sorry about that, just complete brain fart right there. Can't think of the words for anything. Okay, opacity. Now, since this is a bit overbearing and confusing, we'll change the opacity to blend in with the original background a little bit, just to make it a little nicer. And there it is. And also what people usually ask is how to make the easy shadow. And to do that, you can either do what I went over before and select it by, and when I say it, I mean the character as a whole. Select his outline, Control Shift, select for the color, and then make an extra layer behind them, and then with a darkish color or grayscale color, press Ctrl F to fill this entire selection. And if you watch here, I'll undo that and then Ctrl F, and yay! We have our shadow, but it's still behind them, so Ctrl T again, and you can move it around. So with that, we can make him on the ground or just kind of off to one side. And once again, once you select the position, you can change opacity to make it look more realistic. And I think that's about it for this video. I will do my signature, and then we'll be done. It is 12. And so yeah, this is Budgies Are Cool. Thanks for watching this video, and take care.